This is a story about how at one time I had my power taken away from me from an incident since I was a kid, and how I found empowerment later on as I did some personal work on myself. So this is called From Loss of Power to Love. I grew up in the Fairyland Lighthouse, and I lived with my parents who were artists and my sister who was also artistic. We had a very tight family in the sense that we loved and appreciated each other, and we always supported each other. I went to a Catholic school in Fairyland, and the incident started with I was sitting in grade 4 classroom, and the principal of our school, Sister Consolata, was doing her rounds to state the rules of the school. Today she was walking around, going into each classroom, talking about how we have to wear our uniform without pants underneath. And of course all of us were wearing pants underneath because it was cold. Anyway, so she comes into the classroom. We all freeze because we know what Sister Consolata is like, freeze with fear. She stomps in and she proceeds to do her tirade on how we should be wearing no pants under the uniform. And she sends us all out and takes the we have to take the pants off and come back in. And then she singles me out from my desk and sends me to the front of the classroom to be the bad example of someone who is wearing pants underneath the uniform. And as she is doing that, I am feeling the emotional, she is emotionally disempowering me. It's as if she's sending these arrows at me and totally psychically disempowering my whole being. And that was a very traumatic experience for me, to be standing in front of the classroom, embarrassed and disrespected. I was devastated. It was a trauma. Afterwards I wondered, what was it that she had about me? Why didn't she like me? I was a good student. I did all my studies. I had nothing wrong. And later on I would kind of wonder, well, maybe she doesn't like me because I'm the daughter of an artist family. Was that threatening to her? Maybe it was because I wasn't Catholic and I was still a good student. What was it that she had in for me? So at that time, without knowing it, I took it personally. And that pain that was impacted on me stayed in my body for many, many years afterwards. And so as time went on, I made my travels to India, and I started to do some spiritual work on myself. I stayed in a community with a teacher and for 17 years. And during that time I also did some traveling, because I always loved to be in spiritual company. And I always was gravitating towards new spiritual company where, you know, the teachers, and I would interact with the teachers and whatnot. So I've noticed now in retrospect, I can see a pattern that had happened, and I had projected Sister Consolata onto these spiritual teachers, and most of them happened to be female. And I would always have this strong reaction, like they were authoritative, they were disempowering. Their style really offended me to the point where I was critical of them, angry with them, just a very strong reaction to these spiritual people. And I couldn't understand why I was having such a strong reaction, because I love spiritual company. So I had somewhere made a decision based on that trauma that I was not going to be like Sister Consolata, and I wasn't going to be like all these other people that seemed to be like Sister Consolata. I was going to be the best example of a spiritual teacher. So I was in reaction to this trauma that I was carrying in my body. So recently I decided to do a spiritual exercise on myself, which I do quite frequently, to keep clearing anything that remains in my psychic body or my physical and mental, emotional body. So one day, as I was working on myself, I noticed that I had this pattern of strong reaction to authoritative figures, especially female. And I thought, okay, well, let me do this exercise, because now it's becoming clear that it's Sister Consolata that's the root of my strong reaction. So the exercise is called Communication to Others. So I made this particular communication. I said, Sister Consolata, you should go to hell for all the bad things you've done to all these poor young people. And I was one of the recipients of your negative energy. May the devil eat you up in hell. Go to hell. So I said something like that. And I asked myself afterwards, how did that feel to express this back to her? And I answered, and I thought, you know what? I actually feel really good. I feel empowered. I stood up to the person who disempowered me, that made me carry that pain for all those years. That was good. And I checked in again, and I thought, well, is it good enough? Is it satisfying for me? And as I checked again, I realized that it wasn't totally satisfying. It wasn't complete for me. And I thought, I need to do something else. What is it that I need to do? And what I recognized is that it was a kind of a tit for tat. It was like my ego getting back at the other ego. So I thought, okay, what can I do? What's another exercise that I can release the pain out of my body, so I'm not carrying pain with me that is always creating a reaction to the external world. I just don't want this pain in my body anymore. What is larger and more beautiful and grander than pain and negativity and darkness? So I thought, okay, I'm going to do another exercise. I'm going to re-script my past experience with Sister Consolata. So here it goes. I'm sitting in the grade 4 classroom. Sister Consolata walks in with her purpose, which is talking about the uniform. So she comes in, she does her tirade about we shouldn't be wearing pants underneath our uniform. So she proceeds, and she pulls me out of my seat, stands me in front of the classroom, and I'm standing there. And at the moment that I'm standing there, I look at her and I go, what is greater than the state of mind that she's in that will prevent the pain entering into my body? What will stop that? What will change that? What will transform that? So I got it. I visualized internally, I visualized throwing a net over her. And I watched, and I also projected love and compassion onto her. And I watched, look at that, she's wiggling. Oh my God, she feels embarrassed. She's looking at everybody in the classroom, and she realizes, she thinks, oh my God, she apologized. She says, oh, I'm sorry. And then she turns around and she walks towards the door, and she opens up the door, and then she turns around and looks at the classroom and makes a big smile, and then she closes the door. And as I'm standing there, I go to my seat, and I get this whole relief. Everybody in the room is like relieved that she's gone. But what I'm holding now is that she was lacking love and compassion. And we all have access to it, but she was not having access to it. And I can offer that. I can give her that. And as I give that to her, she has no power to send pain into my body, because I'm not allowing that pain to come into my body, because all there is right now is the love and compassion of the universe. And for that, I have to thank Sister Consolata.